Okay, we're good to go. Yeah, so some random things we can all do better. We talked about this last year. Apparently, some people weren't paying attention, so now we have to go through this whole boring ass presentation again. It shouldn't take too long. It's actually different from last year. A few things, some people, I think there are some things that happened in the past that we don't see now. And then there's Marty and others had ideas on some things that we probably should include. Some common, we're really talking here about common mechanical and communications mistakes. This isn't world hunger. It's not the crease. It's not the face off. These are little things that add up to just more efficient games. No game's going to succeed or fail based on any one of these things, but they are important. And we'll talk about them. There's the next slide, Marty, if you would. Or am I doing that? You're doing that. So the problem with this list is it keeps getting bigger, right? And so next slide. I threw out most of it and cut it down to 11 things. I couldn't get it to 10. There's a couple of these things I'm just in love with. I couldn't let them go. If you have questions as we go, ask them. And if not, we'll come back. The first one, is losing the race to goal line extended. I think we all know where GLE is. And if you're the lead, if you're the new lead in transition, you should arrive there before the ball. Why? Because the goal is where everything happens. And the goal needs to be covered regardless of what else is going on in the field. I think we sometimes get hung up between midfield and the top of the box, or between top of the box and GLE. Just go to GLE and trust your crew to cover the field as the ball's coming up. If you have trouble with GLE, there's some resources at this website here. Probably check that out, and it can help you with that issue. Questions? No? Next slide, Marty. Cone, the cone. This is the second most important thing about being the single is beating the ball to the cone in transition. And when you get there, if you can, stand behind the cone. Some coaches, a lot of coaches, like to see what's passing between them and the cone. They want to be able to see the midfield line where it terminates on the far side of the field, but stand behind the cone. Again, guys are getting hung up between GLE, top of the box, between the top of the box and the midfield line. Just go to the cone. You may end up coming back. You may go to the other box, but you've got offside here. It's just the best place to be is right in the middle. You can go either way quickly, but get to the cone before the ball does in transition, and you'll be in position for whatever is going to happen next. Next slide. So this happened in a game yesterday. I mean, this doesn't go away at any level. And these mistakes, Gary, how do you find these mistakes? Mostly I find them by watching film of myself and realize I'm doing these things over and over. If you're the lead and you throw a flag in a settled situation, when play stops, tell the single what you have. Hey, Will, like Will's paying attention, but Will, I'm going to take 1-5 white for a slash. And now 1-5 white has heard that the penalty is on him. And then turn and tell the trail official who's going to report it to the table. That gives the lead and the single the opportunity to reset the field, to let the goalie know you're down one man for 1 minute. Ball's going to be side right with me. Whatever the information is we need to resume play, that should all get done. But it only works if we know across the field what the penalty is. If you just turn and tell the trail, then the other guy's left in a position of waiting and trying to see what the report is so that he can tell the goalie it's 1 man, 1 minute, it's 30 seconds, it's 3 minutes full time, whatever it is. So communicate across the field and then to the trail. Next slide. Yeah, this is you see this a lot. Watch the guys on the field. Getting 2 of the 3 to echo or signal these things that we need to have a common understanding of: possession, play, reset, advancement, flag down. 2 out of 3 is pretty good for us most of the time. It'd be great to get all 3. So, I tell the new guys when I was involved more in training them, if you're walking down Maple Avenue in Vienna and you hear a whistle, your arm should point in the direction of play every time. If you're not sure, wait and see what someone else does and do what they do. And then just a secondary thought, we worked on this we had a training event with some new guys a couple of weeks ago. The correct mechanic after the face-off, when someone gains possession, we say possession. It should say untitled poll. I'm not seeing what this are. So the screen popped up on the screen there. It's possession or it's play if a loose ball gets to the restraining line. It's not white and it's not release instead of play. So possession and play are what we say in that situation, not color or release. But just signal and echo everything every time, and then we're all on the same page. Questions about that? No.
So Gary, I threw up a quick poll that says, I know who Jay and Silent Bob are, and the responses are coming in now. And apparently 58% of the people, 60% of the people do know who Jay and Silent Bob are.
Wow.
About 60-40 mix. So I wasn't sure what the reference was going to be, how much it was going to. We should do the ages of those people now to see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my cultural references are dated, but I heard Rob Thompson tell a girl at the scoring table the other day about a Ramones hit from 1974. He may as well have been talking about the Stone Age. She had no clue. So some people's cultural references are older than mine. Next slide. I don't understand why this is an issue, but at times it is. The lead official signals the goal, and he should do it from inside the crease.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
On the last slide, when the ball goes over the defensive line, that's probably when people have, or I would say I have an inclination to say release. And so that's where you obviously can't say possession. Are you just saying play at that point?
Yeah, play is the correct mechanic. Release to me tells the players what they can and should do. That, I mean, if you were just inventing a new thing, I think that's what you'd say, right? It makes sense, but it's not what the manual tells us we want to do.
Yeah, and Scott, in fairness, this is one of those mechanics that has probably been changed 20 times over the years. We used to say release, we used to say color. I don't remember what there was something that made sense about why we went to play, and I can't remember what it was. It made sense at the time, but
yeah, it's probably also the defenseman in me wanting to release.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think you say play if there's no possession. That's why.
Yeah, we were saying release too for the same thing at one point. I don't remember why we went to play, but maybe just it was monosyllabic, single syllable.
Yeah, well, no, I think because release, people were thinking because of a penalty, someone was coming out of the box.
Oh, very good point. That's probably why.
That's exactly it, Jose. Yeah, Jose hit the nail on the head because you're at midfield. There's a player in the penalty box during the face-off, and technically, that player, if time has expired, would be released, but if time has not expired, that player is not released, and that's why we went to play. So Jose hit the nail on the head.
Can we take advice from an unregistered member?
Undocumented.
Who would our unregistered member be?
That would be Jose, who's not registered with
that's a good
DHSL
point.
or CTB.
That's a good point. I moved to strike that from the record. I can edit that out after the fact, so I'll there's not there. All right, here we go.
Hey, it's a goal, just the lead. Go stand in the crease, put your arms up. It's a goal. Sometimes you see the single come running in. He wants to get in on the action too, put his arms up. Why does that matter? Because he's got something else he should be doing right now, right? Which is stay back. It's a dead ball situation. It's when things happen. The singles job in that point is to watch the players. Same as the trail. The trail shouldn't leave his position after a goal until someone in stripes touches the ball. So if you're the single, if you're the trail, just pause, do your job, let the goal let the lead signal the goal, and be in the crease when you do it, right? And you don't feel like you have to turn and face up field like you're signaling a field goal in the NFL. If there's likely to be trouble behind the goal, the guy that just scored, getting into it with a defenseman, face whatever direction you need to. If you watch Pete Buchanan signal a goal on TV, it's almost always he's facing toward where the players are rather than dead upfield from GLE. So that's pretty easy. But we see guys, you know, they signal the goal from outside the box. They signal as they're running in from the top of the box. Go stand in the crease. Looks good. Everyone expects that to be where the signal comes from.
Yeah, hey
Next
Gary,
slide.
just to add to this real quick too, oftentimes I think when we feel like we're looking at the single for acknowledgement or for confirmation, that's not the time to put your arms up in a goal signal. A little thumbs up or a nod would be much more effective, and then let the lead signal. And that way it doesn't show that the lead is necessarily unsure of what happens.
Right.
He's just looking for confirmation of what happened. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot, certainly on TV, that sort of exaggerated bobblehead, head shaking up and down. I'm not a fan of that, but some kind of indication that, yeah, we've got a goal to the single if it appears uncertain is great. Barely know what we have. I always look to the other guy to tell me. I think we skipped the slide, or didn't we? No, we're good.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, no, we're right. So this one just totally jacked them up, coach. This is in all sports, and you see it, the NFL in particular. Communicate using the language of the rule book. Phrases like, I think there's more here, Marty. If you click it, the other things will slide in. Yeah, you can go ahead and just click them all down. So telling the coach, he was giving him the business. That was kind of funny 12 years ago. I don't know if it is now, but it doesn't help anything. It doesn't help the coach explain to the player what the violation is. Just no one has a better understanding of what's happened. Better to use the language of the rule book. And I don't mean to quote exactly. Coach 4:15 says, you know, loose ball, last touch by the defense. Don't quote it word for word, but use the language of the rule book. 15 was defenseless, coach. This is 2 minutes, and it's gonna be full time. So then he knows.
Pay attention.
Why?
Read the fucking rule book.
Yeah. Yes, we'll come back to that, Pete.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that mute button,
Sorry.
that's an issue.
That would be- that
Did
would
Pete
be-
read the rule book?
So, you know, to the coach, right? Use the language of the rule book with him. It helps him explain to his players. We're all in the same. When you go off script, you're opening things up to now interpretation and contention. Want to avoid that. Coaches typically want an explanation, not a conversation. So the rule book language helps you with that. Same with the crew. I mean, we all know we've got 2 flags. There's a player on the ground rolling around holding his head. I don't know why that's funny, but it is. And then you got the guy who comes running in from your crew, and this one says, "You fucking see that?" Well, that's an ejection for sure. Well, I don't know. Is it? So talk about what you saw. This is what we saw. I'm 17, delivered aim at the head and neck, violent contact. That tells us what we have. Well, that's targeting. John Uberti breaks this down for us last year. If you utter the word targeting, this is the 3-minute non-releasable penalty in a VHSL game, and you're asked to at least consider ejection. So when you use these words, it helps the communication, and it also tells us where we are, right? So if we have targeting, now we know. If we have a defenseless player, we know that it's 2 minutes, it's full time. It could be more, but that's where we're starting out. So just keeps everyone on the same page. The NCAA this year went to reporting contact to the head and neck in 3 different ways, so that it's described in a way that the coaches understand what the contact was and why the penalty is 1, 2, or 3 minutes non-releasable, depending on that. So it's just a better way to communicate. Next. Hey, this is like my biggest pet peeve. I don't know why, but before the game, right? The referee is going to communicate with the coaches. When you're doing your certification and the coach has a question about a rule interpretation, let the referee answer. Let him make a mistake if you need to. And then when you're away from the coach, say, I think what you meant to say, and then he can clarify it. What we don't want is coaches asking questions and everyone offering different views, different interpretations. Here's what I think that is, coach. Don't care. The R is going to set the tone for these things. It's the R's interpretations that matter tonight. So let him speak and keep your mouth shut. So I think we all know what STFU is. Waste Marine Corps thing. Why am I still talking? Just shut up. Just be quiet. Let the R do it. It's better. If a coach comes to you with a question, you're having to go over by the sideline. He says, "Hey, what happens?" Say, "Coach, it's a great question. I'm going to talk to the R. He's going to have an answer for you," just to make sure that we're giving the same information to both benches. We have a common understanding amongst ourselves and them of what we're doing. So if you're not the R, let the R speak.
Yeah,
Next
and I think
slide.
I think in fairness too, a lot of this is because of positions that sometimes I put the senior official in, and I put him in as not the R. Okay, and that's all. That's, you know, to give you an opportunity to work as an umpire or field judge, but also to give somebody else an opportunity to work as a referee. And certainly there are senior officials on a crew where the junior official might be the actual crew chief or the referee. So provide that guidance, like Gary said, after the fact, but empower him to do his job. It doesn't mean that outside of that official conference, you can't go have a talk with the coach or say hi or whatever. Okay, we all know that there are relationships out there. The lacrosse world is very small, but in that actual official spot, let the referee do his job. And if you are the senior official, coach him to be a better referee based on the experience you have. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I might say something as the umpire, the field judge. If we've overlooked something, I might say, Will, did you want to go ahead and certify them now? Because Will's forgotten. And then something like that, just to help along. But mostly I'm going to be quiet if I'm not the R until I'm going to try. And I know some of you are going to remind me, Gary, you're supposed to be talking now. And I'll shut up. There's another bullet here, I think, on this one, Marty. Yeah, or no, it's the new slide. So again, I watched that scrimmage on Saturday. Good officials at a private school. One of them comes to the table. I got black, push 30, whatever. It's just color and number and the offense and the time. And if you're doing an NCAA ruled game, get the reset in there. Please reset the shot clock to 60 seconds or 80, depending on the case. We got, who are we? I mean, unless the King of England's on the crew, there's no we. It just sounds better. It's professional. It's easier for the table, I think, to follow. So just the C note. Get rid of the I got. If any of you were ever trained by Rob Broxton, you should be ashamed of yourself going to the table saying I got, we got. You don't got anything. And then it's no longer necessary. I think it's discouraged most places, certainly in the NCAA, to do, hey, 5, 7, whatever. No one knows what that means. Maybe some fighter pilots from the 50s know what that means. The girls at the table don't know. I'm not sure we know when we're doing it. So you do not need to indicate the number of the offended player to the table with your fingers. Just white, 1-5, push 30 seconds. That's all. Just don't signal the number and you're fine. It's a hard thing to get out of if you've done it a long time, but not necessary. So you can drop that from your reporting.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that on a larger scale, Gary's not going rogue here. This is something that has been gradually taken out of the mechanic, the actual signaling of the numbers. Again, because nobody knows what they mean. So even though they might still exist in the actual 3-man mechanics manual, they will be written out once that's updated. So,
yeah, and it shows up everywhere. I think the worst place to learn mechanics is watching D1 officials on television. You know, the R in the Maryland Princeton game on Saturday, signaling with his fingers. He's probably the only one I've seen do that in a while. Yeah, don't believe the videos, Wallace. Just listen to me. You'll be in good shape. Slide. this is, there's really two parts of this. One is we just need the information necessary to continue the game. Loose, push, white, right? The only color we need to say is the color of the team entitled to possession. And when we get too verbose, we're confused the sidelines. Blue players kicking the red players cross, white pushed 5, that was legal, but then red kicked him and that's not. And here's what we have. We don't need a whole dialogue here. It's just loose, push, white, or hold, white. I say loose because I need the extra second to process what direction we're going to go. Otherwise, I'll point the wrong way. You know, I don't know if loose is even something we're supposed to do anymore, but it's just that. Hold, white is all we need. Tells everyone what's going on. So the fewer words you can use to talk about what's happened, the better off you're going to be. There are teams, there are good enough teams in our area that are going to substitute based on the color, the first color they hear. They've got guys going now. And when you trick fuck them by saying the wrong color, they got to pull those guys off and put other people out there. So single color, fewest words as possible as you can to describe what's going on. Hard habit to get out of if you're in the habit of that. You know, white's early blue ball, but it's important. Work on getting that extra color out of your reporting and the extra words out of your explanations.
Yeah, I think you alluded to it right there at the end. Face-off violations. Use simple English. Remember, illegal procedure is a category of fouls. Tell them what happened early. All right, kick the stick. All right, whatever it is, just so they know. So the trail or whomever doesn't have to try to answer a question they don't know the answer to. Just plain English is okay on face-off violations.
Yeah, and it's great when you're kicking the cross. We don't need to know that blue's kicking because we're going to know who kicked who because we're just say a color and we're going to point, right? So kicking the cross, yeah. The elongated illegal procedure this way, no one has learned anything by that. So exactly right, plain language. So some of this goes back to a previous slide, but if you have more than one flag, or if you think a penalty is going to be for more than 1 minute, best to come together and talk about that. And again, what do we have? And then, or what did you see? And then what do we have? Like, what do we all learn in the first year of law school, right? Find the facts, apply the law. Actually didn't go to law school, but I've heard that's what they teach them. So that's it. And it's in an NCAA ruled game. If you're doing a private school game, if you have a conference on the field, you need to tell the benches what you have, what's going on before you resume play. I think that's a pretty good thing to do in a federation ruled game. If you huddle up out there, let the bench know. That's what you're talking about. That one's pretty straightforward. What's next? We're about done. What else do we have, Marty? Is another slide there? Yeah, this is the last one. We covered this a little bit before. Some of us just take a break during a dead ball. We should be busy during a dead ball. And in particular, when we stop the game to report a penalty. This slows us down more than anything else that goes on out there, I think. The table, the trail's going to go report that. While that's happening, the goalie needs to know where the ball is going to be for the restart. We all need to know who's down, how many men, and for how long. We need to know if it's full time or not. We need to make sure we have the right number of players on the field. If we resume play and someone has too many players on the field, that's not a penalty. That's an officiating error. We're going to stop the game, correct the numbers, and restart. So getting those counts correct is important. The trail shouldn't have to do anything more than turn around, see two arms up in the air indicating the direction of play, and either blow his whistle if it's his restart, or point so the official conducting the restart knows to blow his whistle. The guy comes away from the table and he counts the players. We should have done that already. And this confusion that follows the reporting and the resetting, this slows us down. This really is maddening. Even Peter Stewart gets mad about this. The Jimmy Buffett of WALOA gets mad about this, so we can do this better. And the dead balls are not our friend, right? We want the ball up, we want the game going. It takes gets the coaches off our back, forces everyone into the game. So work on this and your games will go smoother and it'll be done quicker. Questions about that? Next. Surely that's got to be almost it, right? Yeah, this is a little different thing. Johnny Birdie, Tom Quigley, Pappy Rupp and I were out training some guys who were either new to the area, new to high school, or maybe just hadn't been seen in a while. And what we tried to do is break down some of the essential elements of each of these categories. There are 6 things there. Watching the poll, I mean, can everyone see the poll results, Marty, as they're coming up?
I don't think they can see them while they're coming up. I think they answer. I have to publish the results. Yeah. So I'll let you know as this goes on. But if you want to cover that real quick.
Good so far, fellas.
Maybe they can see it. I don't know.
So what we tried to identify the essential elements of some things that we thought were important. And this is what we came up with, just really reminding ourselves, as you're the lead, the non-negotiable is the lead to beat the ball to GLE. The non-negotiable is the single is to protect the shooter. Face-offs. If you focus on fair versus legal, you're gonna have better face-offs. You're gonna have a better experience for everyone involved. I can't see Marty because of the poll thing. Communicate no more than necessary.
I didn't realize you guys could all see that. There you go.
Please. And this was something we talked about out there with the guys is you need to call what the video is going to show. Right? If you think it's a cross check and you knock it down to a hold, which we all do, I do, you need to be prepared when someone reviews the film. Says clearly this is a cross check. Why didn't you call it that way? Or vice versa. We have guys doing a game. I thought it was a bit of a push and he called it cross check. And I asked him about it. He said, yeah, it really was a push, but I want to send us a message. The game's getting out of control. I want to send a message. Hey, send a message. I mean, go to Western Union. There's only like Louis and me are the only people on the phone old enough to know what that means. But that's not the time to send a message because they're going to look at the film. They're going to see that it wasn't called correctly. And you're going to be asked to explain that. And you don't have a good explanation. So you got to call what the video is going to show with penalties. So again, this is just a little thing that we were working on out there, but I think it helped get the newer guys calibrated on some expectations and some mechanics, things that matter. So this poll, Marty, we're looking at. More guys got it wrong than right.
Well, and what I think the interesting thing is more than that is the fact that we're pretty much split 50-50 right down the middle, which I think is interesting. All right. So think about that when we're out on the field with anything that we're doing. All right. If we're 50-50 in agreement, disagreement, that's probably not a good number as far as officiating game as a crew. Right.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead. You want to jump in on this one?
No, I you cannot restart with the wrong number of players on the field. That's on you. That's not on the teams. So you got to get the counts correct. Now, if the offending team has got 7 instead of 6, and that 7th guy's running past you and you're the trail, I'm just not going to see him, right? I just want him off the field. I'm not going to slow the restart. I'm going to let him go. But if there's a problem, if all of a sudden you have the wrong number and you throw a flag for too many, that's not a penalty on the team. That's an officiating mistake. It needs to be corrected.
Yeah, but Gary, how about the opposite? If there's one less and they should, are you going to slow the game and try and tell a guy? What I usually do is, hey, it's all even, or whatever the right number is. I'm not going to stop it and wait till the coach dragging his feet and slow the game either.
Yeah, I might say if we're under, I'm a lot more willing to restart with that. I'm probably going to say, coach, count your players, something to encourage them to get out there. But I wouldn't delay a restart if having ample opportunity to put their guys on the field, they've got one fewer.
So the answer to your question then would have been, yes, it's okay. See, the question that was asked was ambiguous because it could have been interpreted multiple ways.
And
What's
that's
the
why
rule? What does the rule tell us, Louis?
I think he's
Well-
talking about okay, can you restart play without the correct number of players on the field?
And I would have said yes.
So
as
10 on 9 is not correct. It should be 10 on 10.
Correct.
It's even. But if somebody's slow to get on the field, why should I hold the other team up? Because
So that's a great point. Let's go ahead and talk through this. You do not have the authority. You do not have the authority to restart play without the correct number of players on the field. If they are taking their time, then you have the authority to do what? What's the authority that we have in this situation? To issue
Flag them,
what?
delay a game.
A delay a game, correct. And if it's the offense, then you would turn the ball over. It's a defense, you would put them man down. Okay, that's what you would do. Remember, you have to consider where you have the authority and where you don't have the authority. Okay,
okay.
so use the tools that are in your toolbox to properly do it. Hopefully, you're going to preventatively officiate it. Okay, that's the goal. That would be the goal at the end of the day, and I think that's the point that Gary was trying to make.
Yeah, we shouldn't have a flag for too many after restarting, which is the main takeaway.
And I think when you really try to work through this, okay, whose responsibility would that be after a goal is scored, for example? Would almost always fall on which position? In most situations, it's going to fall on the old trail, then pass to the new trail, right? Okay, and we ran into this situation. I probably corrected this a half dozen times yesterday at the various scrimmages about having the trail turn his back on the substitution area when after a goal is scored. And remember, you are always supposed to back out of that area and keep your eyes on the substitution area for obvious problems. But this is also one of the reasons why you want to do that, is so you can keep an eye on people coming back on the field. If you are transitioning into a helper position, sometimes it's challenging because you're passing the responsibility over to that other official. All right, but let's always try to, preventatively officiate and encourage people. And given the level of play, right? When we're looking at a first-year coach at Parkview, okay, versus, Robinson or Landon or more established programs, we have a higher level of expectation as far as game management, player management goes. All right, so consider the game you're doing too. All right. So, Gary, did you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
So like I said, most of this stuff's common sense, just reminders before the season starts.
Well, let's open up the floor for a couple of minutes because this is Gary's lists, right? But we've all got a few things out there, and this is the opportunity to throw them out there and help us all, understand some things that we may be missing or things that are important to other people that maybe we don't cover. So what are some other, what was the title of the slide deck, Gary?
I think it's random things we can all do better.
Okay. So anybody think of any other random things that we can all do better? What else jumps out? Feel free to unmute yourself and jump on in. Anybody? All right. One thing I'll jump in on real quick. All right. We had a situation in a scrimmage yesterday that I think is probably made more often than not without issue, but we had the perfect example yesterday of where it can become an issue. Okay, we had an over and back call. Okay, and on the over and back, okay, the ball was started in the defensive half of the field instead of the offensive half of the field where it must be. It's an over and back penalty. It has to be started in the offensive half of the field. As a direct result of the ball being started in the defensive half of the field, what happened? The trail attackman came up and slashed, okay, the defensive player, all right, which never would have happened had the ball been started in the proper half of the field, okay? Remember, even if there is a mistake like that, you can't go back and correct it and say that the foul wouldn't happen. It's a personal foul. So all personal fouls have to be served regardless of how they happen. All right, so keep in mind that little mechanics things on our part can actually cause things to go awry in a game, all right? And little things like that do matter, okay? Anybody else have anything else they want to add? in that
I
regard?
got one for you, Marty. I picked this one up last year. I can't even remember.
Who's this? Scott
but,
Price?
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of just pointing the ball in when it gets into the box, having a verbal touch.
Yep.
And people I picked that up from somebody last year and started using that a lot and recommending it to my crews. So it's just another good way for communication.
Yeah, and anybody that listens to me, if you do listen, it's I'm a talker, right? It's a somebody just blew their nose in the phone, whoever that was.
That was Gallagher.
Okay, all right, but yeah, it's a talk. Say touch. Touch is real important to me. I know, because when you are trying to see somebody step in the side of the box, you can't necessarily know whether they're there or not, and especially if you know it's close. If you know it's close. All right, so little things like that. Any communication, the big reset call. Somebody asked me yesterday, why do we have to say reset if we're not doing a shot clock at the Federation rule? Well, you have to say reset because the single may be breaking to the cone, have his back turned, and he may not know that possession's been gained. Okay, so there's an example. So we get in the habit of everybody going reset, everybody saying possession, all those things. You can't communicate too much. You really can't. All right. Except for we've got communication no more than necessary, right? So it depends. What's the definition of necessary, I guess, is all relative, right? All right, what else we got? Anything else?
You just
Okay.
blowing your nose, Pat?
No, I was taking a deep breath. Sorry, but sorry about that. Is this one thing that it seems that we struggle across all the areas, and I've seen it because I work both up north with games you do, Marty, and then all of Rob's stuff, and out west. And it's funny that sometimes I'll go someplace and I'll advise a coach, hey coach, and even in the pregame, hey coach, have the guys get the eye black under control, or make sure everybody has a mouthpiece. And some coach will be like, well, no one's said that to us all season. I'm like, well, guess what? I'm here today. So clean your faces and make sure they all have mouthpieces. And if we're consistent as an organization from the start of the season all the way through, it actually would make it easier, I think, for the coaches. And same thing, like if we consistently call those cross checks, the short stick defensive midi who runs up to the guy, and the first thing is he's on a dead run, clocks the guy with the shaft of his cross, that should be a cross check. And if on the subsequent checks he jams him hard, he's thrusting with the cross check. Those are cross checks. And sometimes I'll call one in game 5 of the season. The coach will be like, oh, we haven't had that called all season. I'm like, well, coach, today they're going to be cross checks.
And consistency is always the challenge, right? We're different people. We're doing different level games, and trying to find the balance in each and every game is the key. And consistency really is, while it's great to have it across the association, it's great to have it from game to game. It's really from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. And whoever throws that first flag, whoever makes that first push call, sets the tone. If you decide early on you're going to let them play, you're going to let them play. And you just have to realize early on that if you choose to let them play early on and not establish a tone, then you've made a determination early on that you see two teams that can handle that level of play in the fourth quarter the same way they can handle it in the first quarter. Remember, it's okay to call it tighter at the beginning and loosen up as the game goes on, rather than try to do it the other way around, because it will get away from you sometimes. All right.
Yeah, I can chime in for a minute. One thing I've seen too is where a coach will try to call your bluff. I come up and I say, hey coach, no body checks at 8U, 10U, 12U, and they'll look at me quizzically and go, wait a minute, that's the first time I've heard of that. And it's like, well, coach, it's in the rules. And I'm sorry if you're just hearing that now, but it's in the rule book,
Okay.
And again, just holding the line.
Right. And that was Wallace, I think, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and that's a great point. And I'm sure, John and Rob would love to hear this too. Maybe at those levels, with the rules that are a little bit more obscure, that I'm not going to remember, Crouse certainly isn't going to remember them. Okay. That we remind the coaches, having those cheat sheets where we go from high school to youth, where we have those little things that are there, or we go from NCAA to federation. They're useful for all of us. So make sure that the coaches are clear on what those rules are. Okay, we were talking about something early on about how the Canadians, of all people, are cutting back on the contact because it's costing them players. And if they're cutting back on the contact, then that says something right there. All right, John, do you have something? I saw you put yourself on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just as a reminder, the NVYLL rules summary sheet that the one pager, the little matrix, I think that's very important to use that at the coach's certification. Coach, do you certify that all your players are legally equipped by rule for the equipment under your responsibility? Yes, I do. Okay, coach, let's just review this. We're 10U modified field, 10-minute running quarters, 7v7. There's no advancement. There's no stalling. There's no over and back. There's no body checking. No body checking at 10U and below. One-handed checks are illegal, regardless of whether or not contact is made. Going through that summary sheet is good for us to make sure that we are officiating the right game, and it's good for the coaches to help them understand what they should be coaching. So great point, Wallace. Thanks.
All right, last call. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Last call for anything else tonight. Anybody got anything else they want to add?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do, Marty, real quick.
Okay.
I have 3 pet peeves in any games that I ref. And number one is very similar to like when the possession is gained on a faceoff. When it's in the box and he's in, everybody on the crew should have their arm up. Be involved. That's number one. Number two, after a goal, my goal is 25 seconds to get a faceoff done. There's nothing more unnerving when I go and watch games or when I'm on a game and someone in the crew is just waltzing up to the face-off like there's not a care in the world. If we hustle on the field, coaches see that, and it has a big factor in game management. And when things get a little bit sideways, if you're walking to a face-off, a coach sees that, player sees that, and that's just, we get paid too good to not hustle the entire game. And then third, if I'm in passing, I'm a trail, and I clear a box, I talk to a coach, look in his eyes, and be nice. It's that easy. I usually don't have problems. When I have problems is when guys just let boxes get cluttered. It's hard for the single to call offsides. So it's those 3 things that I think are very important as far as game management. That's all I got.
Yeah, and especially that final one with the bench, that's really your opportunity to communicate more than likely with the assistant coach, the substitution area coach, because that's the first guy you're going to come up to in that corner. And they're usually happy to help you out because they want to get the kids down and away from them as well. So that's a good one. On your getting back to the face-off thing, everybody's got these little games we play with themselves during the game. And one of the things that I do after coming up after signaling a goal is I always try to beat the face-off guys back to the spot. That's kind of this little, so it's a good way to keep me moving when I'm going from goal to face-off. So little things like that can help you kind of keep your mechanics on point. Okay. All right, last call. I think there was somebody else trying to jump in right there when Pete started talking. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Ken Fry.
Hey, Ken.
So you've got all different levels of partners working together. I think that we all need to know what you called. Continued discussion of the penalty, why you had one. Some of us might be on a different part of the field, so we didn't get a chance to see the whole play. And in this respect, we can categorize what we've called and what we can call in the future. But I just want to understand what was called. I think we can never talk about it too much and use the verbiage that you want us to use towards the coach that we all understand. And some of us are at different levels, and we need to get a chance to see the play.
Yeah. No, and that's a key point, Ken. If people are properly looking where they should be, most of the time you won't see what's called. Okay, that usually does come down to one, maybe two officials. Three officials should never really be looking at the ball unless it's maybe right off of a face-off. That's one of the only times where you should see maybe triple flags. But even then, maybe we should be looking at some other stuff.
And,
All right,
and
well,
when there's
go
an
ahead.
opportunity during a dead ball or between periods, you should be prepared and open to having someone ask you, what the hell was that? Say, yeah, I don't know. I threw the flag without thinking. It's not questioning your integrity or your competence to have someone say, walk me through that call, explain that to me. If that's off-putting to you, then that's an attitude problem for you, and you need to just be open to that, and have those conversations. Ask if you don't understand, and be willing to explain what you have. I was talking to a guy today who walked me through a 3-minute equipment penalty that wasn't a penalty. It's like, oh, damn. Yeah, well, I mean, it happens, and so be prepared to discuss it and take ownership of what you've called, and everyone will be better off for it.
All right, Wallace, I think you had your hand up. Did you jumping back in?
Yeah, just real quick. This
Sure,
is something I mentioned last season, came up, and it's very important that we all speak as one voice. I certainly have all kinds of things to learn, and I absolutely respect senior officials that are crewing with me, especially the referees. However, if one official has a call, let's say unsportsmanlike conduct, and the R happens to be 40 yards away, and they come jogging up and they announce, that's not how I saw it, and it's loud enough where every single player, coach, and spectators can all hear that, you might be 100% right, but you've done nothing more than just undermine your crew. And there's just a better way to do that. And it's like, have that conversation quietly, just saying, okay, well, this is what I saw, and let's make sure that we're on one voice. If there's a discrepancy, I'm all ears, but to vocally announce to the entire field that the other official appeared to be wrong in their decision, again, it's just undermining, and it really doesn't bode well. That's all I got.